Phil Holmes, Business Development Director for CareShop. I'm here today to interview Nicola Richards, owner of Palms Road Care House. Nicola, you've been in the social sector for 23 years. Can you just give me an overview of your career, please?
Yeah, well, when I was at school, I wanted to be a vet, but I think that was the caring bit about me. But then I decided that wasn't for me because I got to put animals to sleep. So I looked at various options and I ended up moving into the finance industry. So I trained in accountancy. Then I went to work for a firm of accountants in Rotherham who used to provide services to Palms Row. So in my early 20s, they used to send me into Palms Row to do their management accounts on a quarterly basis. And then in 1998, they approached me to see if I wanted to join the group as their company accountant, which is where I started really in the social care sector.
And your career flourished in Palms Row?
Yeah, I obviously joined as the company accountant. There was various board of directors and shareholders, and then several years later I become their finance and ops director, and then moved my way up to managing director in probably 10 years ago. And then the previous owner, over time the shareholders diminished and they got bought out, and then in 2008 I bought out the final shareholder and took over the group in its entirety.
So it's been a tough couple of years with the pandemic. Can we reflect on what experiences you've had throughout the pandemic, from the start to the finish? Also what impact that has on your staff, your people's families, clients, etc.
I don't think any of us really knew what COVID would look like. I think we were all preparing for outbreaks. I think we all sort of said, you know, we've got good infection control measures. We were not prepared for what actually happened. Early on in the pandemic, we started seeing obviously people infected with COVID. My services got hit quite hard during March and April, and that was at a time when there was no testing really available, there was limited PPE, and the anxiety that brought was something else. So I actually looked back and I did some video diaries for Sky, and when I think back to how we felt early on in the pandemic, I was quite optimistic. I was talking about residents who got COVID who were saying I absolutely feel fine, and then several days later they'd sadly passed away. And I think looking back, it's a real emotional roller coaster on what we've all been through, because we were never prepared for what happened.
85 in the moment. It is very upsetting. Everybody's been crying since Friday, because you get like a family.
It's bad. It's bad.
They say that we're described as heroes. I think that's just words and just lies, to be honest.
It feels like that we're the lowest of the low, and somebody's just stepped in a piece of dog and done that, and that's it.
Being a carer is the best job in the world, believe it or not. A lot of people don't agree with that.
When I first started, there was 58 residents in there.
When COVID got into home, I think it destroyed it.
And it's going to go down to 1.
And there's nobody else here, there's just us and Shirley. Yeah, she's just family.
And she's a brilliant woman. She's a first-class carer. She cares about everybody.
Laura came upstairs and she was like, there's a meeting. I was like, okay. None of us were aware of it.
And I sat with all the staff and just told them the real position that we were now in, and that's ultimately led to the home closing.
It's basically, it is a situation for everybody to be in.
It's soul destroying, to be honest. Soul destroying. After fighting a pandemic with my team, for them to be looking at, redundancy.
We feel like we've just been used.
Thanks for all your hard work. Kicking out.
I don't think government have got any idea. They don't live in our shoes.
COVID's not the issue. COVID has been the icing on the cake, really.
It's the funding from the government, and we're not getting it.
The sector's been underfunded for over a decade. It's been underfunded for years.
You know, at the minute, one of our residents, she's panicking. She don't know what's going to happen to her.
We're just worried about her, what it's gonna do to her as well.
And it's upsetting for her. It's upsetting for all of us because we don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know where we're going, you see. We can't get it. We need information on what's vacant to us. We don't know what's vacant to us.
Nobody knows where his future lies for all of us. I don't know.
Care Shop and Palms Road had a 14-year supply relationship. What did you look for in Care Shop when you moved your existing business?
I think price is obviously only one of the elements when you're looking around at suppliers, particularly when you're working in a sector where you're looking after people's lives. So it's incredibly important that we get the support and that you're flexible and that you understand our services, because without that understanding, and we've been approached by many suppliers over the years, but it's actually understanding the service that you're looking after and what you're supporting. I think being reactive to any needs that we've got, for example, if we've got a resident who's new to us, is in hospital and we need specialist equipment, it's having that supplier that can get you that equipment quickly. They can work, in a really dynamic way in training, in support, and that's really important, because without resident admissions, we've got a number of issues. Obviously, it affects our revenue, but it also affects bed blocking. If we can't get somebody discharged into our home without the relevant equipment, then that's a real problem. So that's key, really, and having that personal relationship with the contacts that are coming into our homes and supporting our housekeeping teams, our maintenance teams. It's having that personal relationship, but also having the supplies to be able to deliver on that.
And that's people like all the way down to the van driver, sales, customer service, finance, to support Palms Road as an organisation.
Absolutely. If you imagine you've got a van driver delivering, big containers full of equipment, we can't have them just come and just leave them all in reception. If there's something happening, if there's an emergency, there may be an ambulance, at reception dealing with an emergency. The van driver's got to be understanding of what's happening within that care home environment. So it absolutely starts with, like you say, your delivery drivers. If there's an issue around accounts or something like that, we'd expect some support on that. If there's a blip or we've not paid on time for whatever reason that may be, we still need those supplies. And I know when we've had issues like when I closed the home before, you still supported us with the other two homes, whereas some other organisations didn't. And that for me meant such a lot when we were going through such a financially challenging time. I think one of the reasons why we've stuck with Care Shop such a long time is, again, we had a really tragic incident at one of our homes and we had to look at our range of products. We were under intense scrutiny at the time, and I picked up the phone, I rang you and I said, Phil, I need your help. You came out and you talked to staff about the product ranges, and you actually cleaned a toilet in front of all my team. You wanted to really, really educate them, and you got the gloves on and you got your hands down a toilet in an ensuite room with a full domestic team behind you watching it. And that for me just stood out, and I'll never forget it, because I thought, you've not come here to sell to me, you've come here to support me, and that meant such a lot. For my own entertainment, I did ask you to clean a few more toilets, admittedly, and you did it, so I can't complain, but that in itself was just, it never happened with any other suppliers.
So how difficult was it to get your supplies throughout the pandemic?
At the start of the pandemic, it was the most challenging time that we'd had in sourcing PPE. As I said before, 2 of my services got hit quite badly, and we'd never ever used that much PPE before. So we'd dealt with outbreaks before, but not to this level. So it was incredibly difficult. The government supplies were not coming through. They were saying that they were giving PPE, but locally we weren't getting those supplies. So we were having to go to our suppliers, including yourselves, and express that we were absolutely desperate. We had a really good relationship with the NHS because we support their pathways. They were literally as well just driving around, just dropping off PPE where they could. But it was just so intense at the time. But we did have some really good support from the community. They knew that we were struggling around PPE. Not down to them, it should have been government, but we had people, you know, from factories saying we've got PPE. We had them just turning up at the door, just delivering PPE. So at the time, it was really challenging.
And that was centred around the PPE. What about the rest of the product range which CareShop supply you?
All the cleaning products and all that continued. It was just the PPE that was a real challenge. But in fairness to CareShop, you called me, one of your team called me and said, we understand that you've got real challenges at the moment. We will prioritise you. He kept me updated. I've got like mini hand gels and things like that on order, and he kept me updated throughout. So all the other supplies continued, but you worked really closely with our head housekeeper to support our home. So that again was something that you went over and above on.
It's been a busy 2 years, stressful 2 years for you. Your involvement with Sheffield Care Association, the National Care Association, and to carry things on with all the stress going on in your life and in the sector, you've now decided to set up Support Social Care Heroes charity. Can you tell me a bit about that, please?
Well, some would say I'm crazy. Obviously, we have got a busy schedule in social care, but I think for me, seeing what our staff went through during the pandemic and the extra mile that they gave to our residents, to their families, it's now time to care for carers, I feel. I think they've been through such an emotional roller coaster, and we've all kept each other going through morale. We've buddied each other along. We know that there's been failings within government, but I think one of the positives that's really come out of the pandemic is how in social care we've supported each other, we've come together. Even as competitors, as other care providers, we've got each other through the most challenging time we've ever faced. So I think for me, it really is about keeping the momentum within social care to bring us together as one community, because when we had the clap for the NHS, it really upset me that it wasn't for carers, when actually our guys were being hit really hard. And so for me, it really is about rewarding our staff. And so this is why I've formed this organisation. And what I've been doing is piloting with other homes around the city. Actually, what do our carers want? What do they need? And it really is about investing in them, in their health, their wellbeing needs. We want to really get the recognition that they deserve. So we're working closely at the moment with our local ICS on initiatives to really make them feel rewarded. And when I've talked to our staff about some of the wellbeing projects we're looking at, the face is lit up. And it for me, it's about giving back to them. And for me, it's about what are the positives. And this, for me, is something that we really want to do to support them.
From the video clip we've seen earlier, can I just ask one last question? How is Shirley?
Shirley's wonderful. She obviously, she had to leave Newfield, and she's now at Westbourne. She picked her own room. She's doing amazing. She's still having her nails done. She's still having her hair done. She still loves shopping. She settled in really well. I bumped into her in Meadowhall not so long back. That was quite funny because she got all the bags with her. And we've contacted each other on Facebook quite a lot. She comments on our Facebook. She's just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. In fact, for the Support Social Care Heroes, she's on the executive panel as a resident voice. And she helped me design this logo behind me. She told me she wanted it a little bit more feminine, so I listened to Shirley. So she's fantastic, but she's really happy. So that was, you know, comforting for all of us and the staff that move with Shirley.
I just want to say thank you, Nicola, for your time today. Pleasure as always, and keep up the good work.
Okay, I've got a few more toilets that need cleaning.
Okay.